If you have ever worked on projects that depend on stable connection, you probably know how important consistency can be. One small disruption is often enough to throw the whole workflow off the track. Unless, of course, you're familiar with ISP proxies. I'm Agne, and in the next few minutes, we are going to deconstruct the concept of ISP proxies. Not just what they are, but how they behave and fit into the bigger picture of data collection infrastructure. To put it simply, ISP proxies, sometimes also called static residential proxies, are a hybrid type of proxy that sits between data center and residential proxies. They use data center infrastructure to handle traffic, meaning your requests are routed through high-performance servers. But the IP addresses themselves tell a different story. These IPs are registered under real internet service providers like Comcast, AT&T, or Deutsche Telekom. So even though the connection is processed in a data center environment, the IP itself appears as a regular residential connection. So, when you send a request through an ISP proxy, it first goes to a proxy server hosted in a data center, and from there it's forwarded to the target website you are trying to reach. But what's special about it is how that target interprets the connection. Instead of seeing a typical hosting or data center IP, it sees an address that is associated with a network of real internet service provider. Actually, it might help to take a look at other proxy types to better understand the difference. We have mentioned data center proxies. Those are built entirely on hosting infrastructure. The servers handling the traffic are located in data centers, and the IP addresses themselves are registered under hosting providers. Because of that, data center proxies are typically very fast, reliable, and scalable. They are often chosen when raw execution speed is required for targets with standard security filters. Residential proxies, on the other hand, use IP addresses assigned by internet service providers to real residential devices. As a result, they appear as genuine home internet connections and offer access to large, geographically diverse IP pools. However, because they rely on residential networks, performance and connections consistency can be a little more variable. And with ISP proxies, you get a combination of both worlds. The speed and stability associated with data center infrastructure alongside an ISP-assigned IP that appears as a regular residential or business broadband connection. Another key difference is session stability. ISP proxies are typically static, meaning you can maintain the same IP address for extended periods of time and only change it when you choose to. That makes them particularly well suited for long-running workflows. Also, since they are registered under legitimate ISPs, they are known to carry a strong IP reputation profile. Now, why does all that matter in practice? Think about situations where you don't want your connection to reset every time you make a request. Maybe you are working with logged-in sessions, or just keeping an eye on data over time. In cases like that, features like speed and stability are absolutely critical. And that's exactly where ISP proxies tend to show up in real-world use. You'll often see them used in e-commerce, SEO tracking, ad verification, brand and compliance monitoring, or account-based workflows. Across all of these use cases, the common thread is the same: consistency. They are designed for situations where you want reliable web data access. At the same time, there are few limitations, and it's important to be honest about that. The available IP pools are generally smaller compared to other proxy types, which means they are not designed for large-scale rotation setups. And because of how these IPs are sourced and maintained, they usually fall into a mid to premium pricing category. If If we zoom out for a second, on one side you have the raw speed and efficiency of data center infrastructure. On the other, the real-world identity of residential ISP networks. And in the middle, you get a hybrid that blends both. ISP proxies exist to bridge the gap between performance and IP trust. We encourage you not to think of them as better or worse than other proxy types, and more as purpose-built. If you want to learn more about how these proxies work or how they can support your data workflows, you can always check out our blog. And if any questions come up along the way, feel free to reach out to our team at support@oxylabs.io. Subscribe for more content like this and see you in the next video.